to show you how to make chocolate, the real kind of chocolate. All you need is 3 ingredients, and then you've got optional extras to play with. But 3 ingredients to make pure chocolate. You will never ever go back to store-bought chocolate. Now, this recipe is from my brand new dessert ebook, and there's 2 different ways to make this chocolate. So it depends on whether you have a raw cacao powder or a raw cacao in the block. Today I'm going to show you the one with using raw cacao in the block. So we're using this raw cacao. We want to put in 120 grams of the raw cacao. Now, if you haven't used raw cacao before, it smells like chocolate. It's extremely bitter on its own, but that's why we're going to mix it with things that really enhance that flavor and make it bearable to eat. So 120 grams of the raw cacao block. I went a little bit over, but that's all right. What else you'll need is cacao butter. Looks the same, but it's white, right? So it's just the separated version of the cacao. So the solids, really. So we want to put 90 grams in here. Okay, now we just want to make sure before you start, we're going to melt that now, but just make sure, try and push things off the blades so that it all gets melted down together. And if you do have really big pieces of the cacao butter or the cacao in the block, maybe just cut it into smaller pieces. So we're simply going to melt this down now. We need about 6 minutes. And just on 60 degrees, we really don't want to go over 60 degrees. It's important that we don't burn it. And then we only want a speed of 0.5. So 6 minutes later, we have melted down that chocolate. If you can check that out, how good is that? Now that stage 1 has been done and those 2 have been melted down, it's now time to add our sweetener. I'm using some honey, and you can use maple syrup, you can use agave. I try to use more like liquid sweeteners rather than any kind of coconut sugar or monk fruit sugar or things like that, because the temperature's not hot enough to melt it down and it can stay in the texture. So I like to use liquid sweetener. So whatever you choose, maple, honey, agave, we're using 80 grams. Now we'll also put a pinch of salt in here too. That just brings out the flavors and the sweetness. Now sometimes you'd think that salt is not a good thing to have in your chocolate, but trust me, it really brings it out. Just a pinch. Now, an optional ingredient here is nut butter. This is totally up to you to add or not to add. I like to add it because it gives it a little bit of a fudgy consistency, and it also bulks it out. So you end up with more in the final result, which I'm sure when you taste it, you will know why. So I'm just going to pop in some peanut butter that I had made. If you're going to do this, you can put about 80 to 100 grams of nut butter, and any combination of nut butter, peanut butter, any butter that you have made or that you like to buy. So from there, now one other optional extra, again, you only need those 3 ingredients, the cacao butter, the raw cacao, and the sweetener of choice. But I like to always think, where can I add more nutritional benefits into things? So I'm going to add some maca powder into this one today as well. So I'm just going to add 2 teaspoons of that. Now all we need to do is just simply mix that all up. So we are going to mix it up for 1 minute. We'll put the temperature back on to 50, and then when we tap here, we're going to use a speed of 4.
Yeah.
It is quite important to use a speed of 4 because it really blends it all together really well. We don't want it any lower than that. Alrighty, let's check this out. Incredible. So rich and delicious. Wait till you see this. Now you can pour this into, like what I'm doing now with the baking paper, or if you've got those cute little chocolate molds, they're really cool to play around with as well. Now the fun part of getting to choose whatever's in your pantry and whatever you want to top your chocolate with. So do you want to make it fruit and nut? Do you want to make it nut? Do you want to have it plain? I put a few things together of what I had in the pantry. I have macadamias and pistachios and also a mix of berries. So dried blueberries, dried cranberries, and some goji berries, which I think work really well in here. You might also, there's so many different combinations you could use. You can dob some more peanut butter or nut butter through it. You can just salt it. Literally, you're only constricted by your imagination of what you want to top your chocolate with. So I'm just going to use what I've had here today. And the benefits of cacao are amazing. Cacao is one of the most super foods that you can get. It's honestly really high in minerals like iron and magnesium, which actually help you balance your blood sugar levels and feel relaxed. And it's also really high in antioxidants and polyphenols and flavonoids. And funnily enough, it's actually it has more antioxidants and flavonoids than green tea and red wine. So that's pretty impressive. And when you look at the difference between raw cacao and the properties in a regular chocolate bar that you find in the supermarket, the chocolate bars that we know of, chocolate bars that we buy are full of sugar, toxic vegetable oils. They've got emulsifiers, thickeners, additives, and just really unhealthy, not good for you ingredients, which are going to keep feeding that blood sugar rise and fall. You're going to keep coming back and craving for more. And if you've ever had raw chocolate and dark chocolate before, you would notice a difference about not actually wanting to go back and have more, because it does actually nourish you and satisfy you. Right. So all we need to do now is set that into the fridge or the freezer before we can break it off into pieces. Or obviously if you're using a chocolate mold or even a silicone ice cube tray, I've used that before too. This is going to set and then we'll be able to break it apart and keep it in the fridge. Here we are with the finished chocolate, the homemade chocolate bar. So it's been set in the freezer, maybe half an hour or so is all you need. And if you're not using the chocolate molds like I was talking about before, all you need to do is just pinch it off and snap it like that. So just break off little parts and you've got a nice, delicious chocolate bar. So you can break it into small pieces, little pieces, or again, if you get those chocolate molds that you can get some really cute little shapes and sizes, you can go for that as well. So ditch the store-bought chocolate. It will ruin your gut, throw your sugar levels all over the place. And now that you've seen with 3 simple ingredients, you can make your own. Promise you will never ever go back. Give it a go and make sure you let me know what you think.